Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the September 2nd, 2021 State Board of Education meeting. I'm Eric Davis, Chair of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. Delighted to welcome all board members, advisors, staff, on-site visitors, online listeners, and Twitter followers. And remember, you can follow the State Board of Education on Twitter at edstateboard_NC. You can also view all of our meeting materials and follow the meeting online. Fortunately, the past few days have brought more loss and pain, including the loss of too many of our brave fellow citizens in Afghanistan in service to our country and in defense of liberty for us all. Even closer, yesterday, we lost one of our precious North Carolina students of Mount Tabor High School. We extend our deepest, heartfelt condolences to this student's family and friends as we mourn with them and the Mount Tabor High community. Would you please join me in a moment of silence in memory of these loved ones? Thank you. I'll remind our audience and those listening that this body meets monthly with its official meeting scheduled for the first Thursday of the month. Our customary committee meetings were held on Wednesday prior to today's official meeting date. And I remind our on-site visitors and online listeners you can follow this meeting and see our materials online. Board members, you're reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. At this time, I turn to my colleague, Ms. Amy White, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. White.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. White. We now come to our special recognitions, a time on our agenda when we recognize significant awards, proclamations, resolutions, and those who make a difference in the lives of our public school students we serve each day. This time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Aaron Fleming, Superintendent of Harnett County Schools, for our first recognition. Welcome, Dr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of State Board of Education. It's great to be here and see so many friends and colleagues. I am here today serving as chairman of the Sand Hills Regional Education Consortium to recognize one of our own for a wonderful 54-year career. I would like to ask Mr. James Simeon to come forward, and he's joined by his wife Emily. As I mentioned, Mr. Simeon's 54-year career consisted of being a teacher, a coach, a high school administrator, 11 years as superintendent of Lexington City Schools. As superintendent in Lexington, he established Project Potential, a scholarship program for at-risk students that has awarded more than $2 million since being established in 1996. He served 6 years as superintendent at Clinton City Schools, 23 years as a RESA director. That's 16 in the Sand Hills, 6 in the Northwest, and 2 here in Raleigh as a regional director for Regions 3, 4, and 5. He's been executive director of the Lexington Area Chamber of Commerce. Along with Jim's many talents is his ability to lead members of diverse groups in identifying and reaching common goals. As executive director in the Sand Hills, he championed the Principals Leadership Program, a priority for the Superintendent's Council to support principals with 1 to 5 years of experience. His experience in the areas of human resources, economic development, regulatory and policy compliance, fiscal and budgetary management, facilities management, and community and public relations, coupled with tremendous network that Jim has positioned himself as an amazing advocate for superintendents that he supported. I'm a product of that. I'm very proud of the work, or very proud to have considered Jim a mentor of mine. And so it's my honor to recognize Mr. Jim Simeon.
Excuse me, let me get connected here again. Thank you very much for this honor. I appreciate the opportunity to be recognized, but even more so, thank you, Aaron and David, and where's Robert? Robert, and Derek, and various superintendents around that I've had the privilege of serving with. It's been a great honor and a great privilege. As many of you know, it's been a short but long and exciting opportunity for me. I appreciate your recognition of the accomplishments, but it's mainly due to that of the young lady to my left. And also, I'd like to recognize my son, J. Ross Simeon Jr., who is behind me, and also my sister and brother-in-law, Glenn and Carol Leslie. Those are very important people in my life. Thank you very much for this honor. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Simeon. Would you do us the pleasure of coming forward with your lifelong partner and take a picture?
Sure.
Thank you. Colleagues? Would you like your other members of your family to come as well? Sure. They're welcome.
So Chair Davis, if we could get 2 rows. Sorry. So we need 2 rows. So, yeah, that's great. So we've got some space back here, yeah? That's perfect. Mr. Duncan, if I can have you move over just a scotch. Good, yep. Yeah, that's awesome, yes. And sir, if I could have you come over just a little, yep, right there. And 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, and 3.
Thanks for sharing with us. It's a team sport.
It is. There's a lot. Yes, we will.
Very privileged.
Okay. Arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Next, I'd like to call on our Chief Information Officer, Dr. Vanessa Wren, for the next recognition. Dr. Wren.
Good morning, Chair Davis, Vice Chair Duncan, members of the board, and our audience. It's my honor today to bring forth recognitions of Mr. Michael Nicolades. Michael, would you mind joining me? Michael has been the Chief Information Officer for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction from March 2014 until his recent retirement this summer. At the time of his retirement, Michael was one of the 3 longest-serving North Carolina state agency CIOs and one of the 3 longest-serving U.S. state agency CIOs in the nation. Before joining DPI, Michael had 16 years in private industry, which included a CIO role at a multinational company. When he entered public service, he, like many of us, was drawn to public education and got that bite for the education bug and the service that we like to serve with throughout our career. He found a calling in this realm, and he gave 18 years of his career to various public school systems. Initially, he served as the technology director in Virginia in a large public school system, but eventually was recruited to come to North Carolina and to support our students in the CIO position. During Michael's tenure, he led the implementation of multiple statewide educational applications. One of his most noteworthy accomplishments was his commitment to transforming North Carolina schools by ushering them into the digital age. Michael did this through establishing key partnerships, putting in long hours, and engaging those across the state to bring high-speed broadband to every North Carolina classroom. This is an incredible feat and one where our state has truly led the nation. Michael has represented DPI and North Carolina in multiple state and national organizations, including serving on the board of directors of MCNC and on the CIO network of the Council of Chief State School Officers. In the last few years, he has served as a mentor to the newly appointed state education CIO. He is a graduate of Old Dominion University and holds 2 bachelor's and a master's degree in sciences. Originally from Limassol, Cyprus, his wife Kathy is from Virginia Beach, and they have a daughter who is a high school English teacher in London. Being the international family that they are, they look forward to spending many years traveling between multiple countries. We are so very appreciative of Michael's dedication, expertise, and commitment to North Carolina public school systems. And I'm honored to be able to call him friend and colleague over the last several years. Please join me in congratulating Michael for his service to our agency and his upcoming retirement.
Thank you, Dr. Wren. I really appreciate these words. Chairman Davis, Superintendent Truitt, members of the board. I'm honored to be standing here and appreciative of this recognition. I have to say I couldn't have done this without the team that I've worked with over the years, with my colleagues here at DPI, with other partners across the state, from all the state schools. And this is not something that I did me as by myself, but it was a whole team behind me. I have to say, I'm really glad to see the direction that the public schools are moving. I'm very happy with the cooperation between the state superintendent and the state board. There is nothing but bright future ahead of us. And I just want to be brief and say thank you for this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, do you have family with you that could come forward?
My daughter is in a classroom in London.
We'll give her a pass.
She can zoom in.
We need 2 rows in here. Same spot. Hot dogs on this floor.
Yeah, that looks great.
And 1, 2, and 3. One more. 2 and 3. Thank you.
Congratulations. For our next recognition, I'd like to call on Deputy Superintendent Dr. David Stegall.
Actually, you get a better version, you get Dr. New.
Good morning. It brings me great pleasure this morning to recognize Miss Beverly Vance. Miss Beverly, please join me. North Carolina has been incredibly fortunate to have Beverly Vance, who has been leading as Section Chief, the Science and Math Department for the Division of Academic Standards. When I think about Beverly Vance's leadership, there's a concept that comes to mind, and it's human beings versus human doings. Being an educator is what Beverly Vance does, but who she is an educator at her heart and her core. And for the past 28 years, she has served the state of North Carolina's students, schools, and districts as a consummate leader. There is a concept in many cultures that is very historical called other mothering, and it's the concept that even though you are not mine by blood, you are mine and I cover you. For every individual that I've had the opportunity to work with here at DPI, they have said that Beverly Vance is their other mother. She has led, she has guided, she has protected, and she has covered. She has supported, and she has been there for so many of us when we have needed a word of wisdom, when we have needed a helping hand, or when we simply needed a listening ear. As Section Chief, Beverly has positively impacted this state, leading instruction, leading the standards revision, and making sure that the science and math instruction across our state and across all 100 counties, from Cherokee to Currituck, have been of an excellent standard. Moving forward, we are excited that Beverly is going to be able to enjoy more time with her grandchildren, Caleb and Christy, her husband Elmo, and her church community. And we know she's going to continue to spoil herself with good books, Marvel movies, Carolina cupcakes, and there's rumors that there's a new pair of Jimmy Choos in your future. There is no doubt that Beverly Vance is one of a kind in her field. And our only complaint, Miss Beverly, is that there are not more of you to share with this world and to share with the state of North Carolina. So on behalf of the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and the Division of Academic Standards, thank you, we love you, and best of luck in your future.
So, how do you follow that? Except to say thank you. Thank you to each of you who serve as leaders in North Carolina in education, whether you are a substitute teacher, which I started as in 1985, I was a sub, whether you are a leader in the kitchen as a cook in a school, the janitor who was often my best friend in a school, the teachers who are other mothers and fathers, the principals, district leaders, superintendents, state board members, consultants at DPI, section chiefs, directors, because you've all made this moment special for me. I had so many things I wanted to say, and she just blew me away. So I can only say thank you for the opportunity to serve this state. Thank you to the mothers and fathers who send us the best that they have. They do not keep a better child at home. They send you the best that they have. They do. They send you the best they have, and we have the responsibility of living what's on that wall, which is what has guided me. The 16 years that I've been here is that the people have a right to the privilege of education, and it is the duty of the state to guard and maintain that right. For every mom who I've cried with on the phone because they did not realize that right for their child, I say thank you for the opportunity to cry with you. And for every grandparent who said, I don't know what's going on at that school, but I know it needs to be better. And I've stayed on the phone with them every Friday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday until we figured it out. Thank you for that opportunity. And thank you for those people who are behind me right now who serve as my team. For I could not have done anything without them. And I thank them for coming back every day when I said, no, it got to be better than that. It cannot be raggedy. They came back anyway. So I thank them. I thank each of you. I thank Miss Marilyn. I can hear back there chuckling, who kept me on my feet every day. Thank you to my champions and thank you to my critics. Never get rid of either of those in your life. Champions and critics. The champions are going to encourage you until you get it right. Your critics are going to keep you evaluating, do I need to keep doing this? Thank you to them. Thank you to my family, my daughter who made me the grandma that I'm going to continue this next segment of my life. My sons who have been behind me as well, but most of all, I thank my husband, Reverend Elmo E. Vance, Jr., who he probably does not know it, but he still takes my breath away.
How sweet is that?
So, thank you for the opportunity to serve.
What a blessed family I am today. Yeah.
Okay, let's have everybody first row up. Mr. Duncan, if I could have you stand right in front. And 1, 2, 3. One more. And 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Wow. Beverly, I don't know how we follow that. But if we ever needed inspiration to keep doing what we're doing, you are the inspiration. So, thank you so much. For our final recognition of the day, I'll turn to Mr. Howard Ginsburg.
Thank you. Hopefully I won't sound as choked up as I feel after that. Good morning, Chairman Davis, members of the State Board, advisors, special guests. On behalf of Dr. Stegall, Dr. Hemphill-Joseph, and Trey Michael, we thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. My name is Howard Ginsburg. I am a STEM consultant. It's my privilege to recognize our 2021 North Carolina STEM Schools of Distinction. The STEM Schools of Distinction program holds schools to incredibly high standards that prepare highly educated, globally ready students empowered with the social and emotional skills for success. It's through 5 well-defined overarching principles that the program ensures the resulting distinction is truly that, a well-earned testament to the amazing educational practices that benefit our students, our schools, and our communities. Since 2014, the STEM Schools of Distinction Recognition Program has guided educational leadership practices and STEM learning opportunities for students. And in 2019, a process was implemented that allows previously recognized schools the opportunity to renew their STEM designations an additional 3 years. I'm proud to recognize 3 schools who have earned a continuance of their STEM School of Distinction designation. My congratulations to Hendersonville Elementary School in Henderson County and Weatherstone Elementary and Hilburn Academy of Wake County. These schools continue to demonstrate their uncompromised commitment to excellence in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics by supporting a high-quality STEM culture and offering engaging opportunities through their daily instructional design. I'm also extremely honored to announce that this year 3 additional schools have proven themselves deserving of recognition as North Carolina STEM Schools of Distinction. We applaud the faculty and administration of Beverly Hills STEM Elementary in Cabarrus County for earning the model designation, as well as the faculty and administrations of Oak Grove Choice STEM in Stanley County and Snow Hill Primary in Greene County for earning the prepared designations. Even in the shadow of COVID-19, these schools have shown an incredible commitment toward igniting the passion for creative learning and growing the culture of STEM education within their communities. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Richard Wells, the principal of Beverly Hills STEM Elementary, to share some remarks about his school.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ginsberg. And good morning, Chair Davis, Superintendent Truitt, members of the board, and others assembled. I'm Richard Wells, and I have the honor of serving as the principal of Beverly Hills STEM Elementary School in Concord, North Carolina. I'm joined by Mr. Michael Baden, our Assistant Principal of Instruction, and Ms. Megan Charlton, our District STEM Coach. I'm also humbled to be able to stand here today alongside several of our district leaders who have provided the visionary leadership that's paved the way for our school's transformation over the past few years. We've got Mrs. Alan Zamansky, she's our Program Choice Coordinator, Ms. Sarah Reeves, our Elementary Director, Dr. Crystal Hill, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, and our newest member of the team, Superintendent Dr. John Kopicki. And I'm excited to sit under his leadership as he helps us to continue our upward trajectory and leads us to new heights. So Beverly Hills is a small, diverse, urban elementary school in the Cabarrus County Schools, serving just under 300 students in kindergarten through 5th grade. We've been committed to STEM education since becoming a STEM designated school in 2016. As a neighborhood school in the CCS K-12 STEM pipeline, we focus primarily on equipping students to solve real-world problems using the Bulldog design cycle based in the STEM disciplines. However, we believe that even if students choose a path outside of the STEM disciplines, they will possess the confidence, perseverance, and a mindset that will serve them well in school and in life. Our focus on STEM education has truly turned our school around, helping us go from being one of the lowest performing elementary schools in our district to consistently exceeding expected growth year after year. Earning this designation would have been a daunting task even in a quote-unquote normal year, but as we all know, our context over the past 18 months has presented its own set of unique challenges and hurdles to overcome. As a testament to our commitment to consistently pursue excellence for the sake of our students, when presented with the option to either press pause for a year or to forge ahead with our application, our entire school unanimously chose to continue our pursuit. That makes this distinction even more rewarding. And earning our STEM certification as a school of distinction was the next logical step in our journey to unlock students' potential and help them thrive in STEM careers and in the real world, but it isn't our last step. Our school has already begun our work in the recertification process. We're going deeper into our focus of building a solid STEM culture at our school. We're working with our team to continue to find ways to improve because we owe it to our district our school, our community, ourselves, and most importantly, our students. Now I'd like to invite Mrs. Megan Charlton, our district STEM coach, to say a few words, because truthfully, she's played a significant role in helping us go from our vision and converting that into action steps to help us achieve this distinction. So, Ms. Charlton.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. All students at Beverly Hills STEM Elementary participate in a variety of instructional methods, such as inquiry-based lessons, problem and project-based learning opportunities, virtual and in-person field trips, as well as regular career exploration that intentionally and explicitly highlights individuals from diverse backgrounds. Beverly Hills prides itself on being a small neighborhood school with close-knit ties to the community. We capitalize on our close-knit community by participating in a STEM Business Advisory Council quarterly to design instruction that utilizes our community partners and helps to prepare our students for the real world. Our business partners assist our school with a variety of projects and professional development opportunities, such as building and caring for our school garden with the North Carolina State Cooperative Extension Office, virtual field trips for every student with the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and partnering with Charlotte Motor Speedway on a third grade Force in Motion PBL that included multiple site-based visits from racing professionals. We also work closely with the other STEM schools for our STEM pipeline, 4 of which are also recognized as North Carolina STEM Schools of Distinction. We provide opportunities for our students and teachers to connect across schools and levels. Students also compete in quarterly design challenges where our school winners take a trip to places such as Embassy Suites to throw paper airplanes off the top floor, or a water treatment facility after building their own water filtration devices in class. It is our goal to not only foster a love of learning, but to also expose our students to a wide variety of possibilities beyond our community as we prepare our students for the real world. We strive to build a culture of STEM that extends beyond the 4 walls of our classrooms and sticks with our students well beyond their time in our halls. Thank you for this honor and for allowing us to be with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Wells and Ms. Charlton, for all the work that you and your entire school and community do. I am next happy to introduce Principal Kelly Dombrowski and Oak Grove Choice STEM School.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Dombrowski, principal of Oak Grove Choice STEM K-8. We are located in the small but dynamic county of Stanly County. I am honored to be with you today with our scholars, our STEM coach, Mrs. Crawford, our district leaders, and our superintendent, Dr. Jared Dennis. I'm honored to be here to represent a team of dedicated teachers, families, community partners, and scholars who have worked tirelessly since opening in 2017. When the Stanly County School Board determined that our school would reopen as a STEM school, there were many directions that we could have gone. After finding the STEM rubric, we set a course to ensure that our scholars would apply STEM in all that they do every day. The rubric became our guide to not only open a school, but to create an educational experience where students would see the real-life application of the standards they learn each day. In doing so, we are creating a culture of excellence, leadership, and proudly sending confident, critical thinkers on to their next school. Our STEM coach, Mrs. Jennifer Crawford, has kept our team focused on the STEM rubric and guided us through processes in a uniquely detailed manner.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Crawford, and it has been my honor to work with and watch an amazing group of educators, scholars, community members, and our business advisory committee bring STEM and problem-based learning to life. From helping hurricane victims through an English novel to students solving problems that have emerged from this pandemic, our community as a whole has embraced STEM. I personally love getting texts and emails asking, can I, and what if we, from our teachers and staff, who you wouldn't believe what my scholar did this weekend. So the heartbeat of our little school are our scholars. And while we wanted to bust them all over, COVID had other plans. But we do have Lucas Mullis and Noah Waite, who finished 4th in the state science fair last year for the mobile carts they created to solve a real-life problem they saw during school breakfast last year.
Hi, my name is Noah Waite. I'm a 7th grader at Oprah STEM. I started at Oprah STEM as a 3rd grader. In its first year, I love going to a school where there's lots of focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. I've always liked building with Legos and blocks. I enjoy working with robots and learning how things work. Now I go to a school that allows me to play and use these things all the time. I had the chance to learn about computers and coding. We get to use in it for fun new computer programs. I'm lucky to have access to these schools as an Oprah scholar. I have had the opportunity to participate at their each year. My teammate Lucas and I won 4th in the state science fair this past year. Our teachers and supported us throughout the process. They taught us to ask questions and work towards a solution. Oprah STEM has taught me how to take things I learned in the classroom and apply them in real world. As a scholar, we are supposed to do our best and grow a little each day. Your family at Oprah STEM, and I'm glad I had the chance to be part of it. Thank you for awarding us the honor of becoming a STEM school.
Yeah, and I'm also glad that OCSS got the STEM School of Distinction Award, because it is an amazing school, and I will tell you why. First of all, my name is Lucas, and I've been going to OCSS open. And I've learned a lot. As an example, Miss Crawford has taught us how to code and use Python, which is a type of computer language. She has also taught us how to be creative when there's not a lot of things to do. Another example is Miss Dombrowski and all the other teachers at OCSS encourage us scholars to improve and do better in all we do. Thank you for giving us the STEM School of Distinction Award. Thank you.
Again, we are honored to receive this distinction in the short 5 years since opening, and we are so very thankful for the support of the state school board, our own local school board, Howard, our state STEM consultant, the Stanley County School Board and directors, community partners, and our personal families, as well as our school families that have stuck with us and worked with us to make this happen for our K-8 scholars at Oprah Choice STEM. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you, Oprah Choice STEM. You guys do amazing work there, and we're happy to celebrate you today. Finally, I am happy to introduce Principal Emery Smith and Snow Hill Primary.
Good morning. This is Emery Smith, Principal of Snow Hill Primary from Greene County Schools. Before we get started, I want to introduce some of our crucial team members that are with me today. To my left is Miss Jenna Meekins. I also have Miss Amy Fraboni, which is our instructional technologist. I also have Dr. Creech, our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Miller, our Superintendent, Miss Stephanie White, our librarian, and also I have Mr. Jose Garcia, which will be starting our comments.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start this morning by definitely taking some time to share some information about Greene County Schools. We're very humbled and honored to receive this recognition. And as we share a couple of comments this morning, you're going to see how it plays into our district plan. And it right off, as you notice, our administration, our leadership is very humbled, and they always push the credit off towards the teachers and the other stakeholders that are involved. But to start out, I definitely want to just mention a few more names this morning. We have our advisory and support council that meets twice a year. And so some of those individuals could not be here this morning, but Jason Miller from our local Lenore Community College system, he definitely supports the efforts that have taken place here at Snow Hill Primary, but also that take place throughout the district around STEM education. Also, Ms. Danielle Riggs, our 4-H coordinator for the district, she's always looking for opportunities for us to join and to be part of after training, so she does a great job in keeping us informed. And then also Bruce Middleton with STEM East. Bruce Middleton has quite a few schools under his umbrella, and he makes sure that we are active participants throughout the region. And the fact that Snow Hill Primary is able to support other schools, and other schools are able to support some of the efforts that would take place around STEM education in the district. So just a little bit about Snow Hill Primary. Snow Hill Primary has 362 students. It's a K-1, kindergarten and first grade school. Our breakdown typically is about 126 African-American students, 96 Caucasian, 128 Latino, Hispanic, and 11 that are 2 or more races. Very diverse group of students. For our district perspective, here at the elementary school, especially starting out with Snow Hill Primary, STEM education has become our training ground because the program has created a pipeline over the last 10 years so that from kindergarten through 12th grade, the students are involved with STEM education. All the students in K-5, they're focused on project-based learning and embedding those skills into the different tasks that they complete in the classroom. When students, as they go through the elementary school, they eventually get to the middle school, which also has a STEM recognized, excuse me, it's a model STEM distinction school. And then they pursue that learning at the high school level, which is also recognized as STEM model school. And so at the Snow Hill Primary, project-based learning and problem-based learning take place. We focus on careers, we focus on embedding 21st century skills. One of the things that we pride ourselves in as we go through the year is we make sure that in the classroom and the extra opportunities that are presented to students, that we make sure that students focus on being problem solvers, inventors, innovators, they're self-reliant, logical thinkers, versatile, and technology literate. And one of the strongest pieces that we see at Snow Hill Primary that eventually follows students as they go through the other elementary schools and make their way to the middle school, and then we see it take hold at the high school, is their leadership and community service. Starting here at the kindergarten and first grade, we have a group that we call our mini ambassadors, which eventually turns into our junior STEM ambassadors at the middle school. And then our high school students become the STEM ambassadors. But the focus is on leadership and community service. We find issues in the community. We make sure that we recognize students within the school. And so it starts our students down that leadership path, that leadership journey at the very, very early level. Snow Hill Primary has various levels of STEM education that take place. As I mentioned, part of that is our community service and our leadership development. But the skills and career focus and the project-based learning that takes place, we're proud that we developed a STEM repository that we don't just share within our school, but as the teachers are coming on board, they have access to STEM-focused lessons. And these lessons include science, technology, engineering, or math, but the other pieces that we also make sure that we embed from careers to skills. And the cool part about that as well is that we also help other school districts and share to form those partnerships for schools that are looking to go down the path of STEM recognition, or for those schools that are just looking to get started with STEM education. So that STEM repository is something that has been a collaborative effort, not just from our teachers here in the district, but from other teachers that we've worked with across the state to build that repository. The junior challenges are awesome because students get a chance to focus on those careers and those skills and apply those strategies to focusing on issues around the globe. And that's where they follow through the engineering design process. And we also have STEM centers throughout the week where students get a chance to just get a break and focus on other pieces that are STEM. And then we have our Proud of Our Makerspace where students come in and test some of these products and actually build these products when it comes time to do those before they present those to their peers, or also we take them to present to other schools. And one of the things that we're very proud of is our STEM Education Expo. The STEM Education Expo, we bring communities together. COVID has definitely hampered that issue, but with the STEM Education Expo, the teachers, the students get a chance to interact and showcase the items that they're working with in the classroom, and just to see the types of work that's taking place across the district. And it also gives us a chance for the high school students and the middle school students to come together and to build that sense of community. And we alternate how we carry out the STEM Expo. It's obviously a little different with COVID in place, but we always are proud to showcase the different projects that students work on throughout the year. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Smith.
And again, I'd like to thank our great team here at Snow Hill Primary and Greene County Schools. When we started this initiative 5 to 6 years ago, it was never started to get this designation. But my main goal as principal was to give kids an opportunity to communicate with their parents at home. This is an opportunity where these kids go home each day, and these are the things that they talk about. So I just wanted to again say thank you to the State Board, thank you to the members, and thank you again to our team here in Greene County Schools. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Your community is benefiting from your work, and it's been my pleasure, State Board, to share these 3 schools with you today and give them the honor as being North Carolina STEM Schools of Distinction.
Thank you, Mr. Ginsburg, and we join you in honoring and celebrating Beverly Hills, Oakboro, and Snow Hill, and all the great work that's going on in our schools, educating our children through STEM education. Thank you so much. Colleagues, we're going to have a slight audible to our agenda. Unfortunately, our superintendent's a bit under the weather today, so we'll look forward to her speedy recovery and receiving her report next month. Also, we'll move forward with the legislative update. Is Mr. McKinney available? There he is. Thank you, Mr. McKinney.
Good morning, Chair Davis, Superintendent Truitt, Vice Chair Duncan, Lieutenant Governor Robinson, Treasurer Falwell, board members, advisors, my colleagues here at DPI and the board, and our friends across this great state and the Greater Shire. Thank you for the opportunity and the honor this morning to present to you on the legislative update, but I would actually like to begin today's presentation by offering an opportunity to remind us of our why. So my good colleague, my good dear friend and colleague, Ann Murtha, has done an incredible job this summer with working with our intern, Sarah Nicole Haynes. And we would really be honored this morning to have her come up and share about her experience. And again, just remind us that everything that we do in this room has a greater purpose and a greater why. So Sarah, would you mind coming up, please? Sarah is majoring in public policy and sociology with a minor in statistics at UNC Chapel Hill. She is also the president of Student Organizations Council, and I'm beyond thrilled to also announce that she has applied and been accepted as a North Carolina Ed Corps member. So,
Wow. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm so glad to be here today. Chair Davis, Vice Chair Duncan, Superintendent Truitt, who I hope is listening live stream, Lieutenant Governor Robertson, Treasurer Falwell, Dr. Townsend Smith, and esteemed North Carolina State Board of Education members. My name is Sarah Haynes, and I am a senior at UNC Chapel Hill studying public policy and sociology. My passion is education, and I have had the pleasure of being here this summer, being able to observe everything in the legislature under my marvelous bosses, Ann Murtha, who is always taking selfies with me throughout the day. I'm just here to share with you some of my observations along with a special project that I've been working on, and it's actually very relevant today because it is about natural disasters. Feel free to scan the QR code that is on the first slide. It'll take you to my digital portfolio, which has a lot of the work I've been doing throughout the summer. And if you're live, you can just like take your camera and tap it. Pop up. So my first thing that I noticed, Schoolhouse of Rock lied to me about what a bill goes through. I feel the song is very catchy, I'll give it that, but I think the process is much more like this. I definitely had a great textbook understanding prior to my time here, but it's a little different in person. One thing that I really took note of was how casual the General Assembly was. For example, I was able to partake in Tomato Sandwich Day. As a Midwesterner, I thought that was crazy, but it was delicious, and I hope 3 more to follow on the weekend. But I think it was really interesting to see how everybody interacts and how specifically bills flip between the Senate and the House. I did not understand that, and I'll say I give everybody props for keeping track of all the bills that are on the floor. It took me 3 months to get a hold of everything, and I still don't really have it down, but I'm faking it until I make it. Looking specifically at North Carolina education, like I said, I was with the State Board of Education and was also able to observe the Department of Public Instruction. I think where my education sadly fails me is implementation. We do a lot on how to do research for bills and how to write bills, but not on how to implement them. So being able to see that done throughout the summer was really great for me. I also really understood, and my boss really helped me understand this, the importance of education stakeholders and partnerships. I didn't really know what that was prior to this, but now, like you said, since I'll be starting at the North Carolina Education Course, seeing how you both had the State Board of Education and they had similar goals of doing well with literacy in North Carolina, had that similar goal, came together, and now we're actually making change, and I'm excited to do that in the future. These are some of the bills I was able to observe, and I'll actually be staying for the fall. So I'm really excited to see some of these ratified and run their course at least, and I think understanding that bills can be repurposed in different ways was really new to me. And then I'd like to talk about teachers for one. Mom, if you can stand up. You say mom. Yeah. That's my mom. Love you, Mom. And my dad, he's actually a community college teacher, so I think he's listening live stream. Hello, Dad. But teachers have been very impactful for my life. I'm actually wearing my grandmother's pin, and she was a teacher, and I think it is the teacher that makes a change. It was one teacher for me in first grade who really made sure I could read at the highest level, and I'm pretty positive she changed my entire academic outcome, along with my mother, who was always making me read. But I think I admire everybody here, and also hearing how your times in the classroom like helped you make decisions today. It was really inspirational to me, and I hope to one day also pursue the passion. But I know it was the change, and I think North Carolina is educated to finding great teachers like my mother to make that change for students every day and raise the next generation of civil-minded students. But yeah, now let's look specifically at my special project. So at Chapel Hill, I'm actually published doing research for hurricane preparedness, and I wanted to look at that specifically on how we can help teachers during a hurricane. So I started with first analyzing current and past hurricane legislation and seeing where there was any gaps. And then I went into a lengthy literature review in which I had these three takeaways. And then the big step that I learned from my boss, Dr. Davis, is to talk to teachers. I had the pleasure of working with Miss Lisa Godwin throughout the summer and hearing her experience in Onslow County. I think I said that right. Because they went through Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Dorian, and now we have Hurricane Ida, so this is very relevant now. But after talking with her, we came up with 3 recommendations, which I will go through now. The first one is utilize school as a community support center. Through my research, I found that a lot of schools have a natural pulse on what's going on throughout the community just because so many people have to interact with it already. Why not really utilize that during a time of need? So that looks like having food pantries, first aid, all in one center, especially as we continue to build hurricane-resistant infrastructure. So that's one thing I'd like to be considered in future budgets. The second thing would be to contact therapists throughout North Carolina to be on standby. So in similar situations, such as like a school shooting, in which school therapists in neighboring communities come and converge in that area during their time of need, why not have that for natural disasters? I think in my discussions with Ms. Godwin, we talked a lot about how the therapists were overwhelmed with how much they had to handle, and a lot of times it was on teachers to put up a lot of help as well. And I think with everything they have to juggle, that this is one less thing they have to worry about. And just having a list of school counselors in neighboring communities that weren't impacted come and help would be really helpful in the future. And then lastly, this is pretty simple, is send class supply boxes to teachers. I know things like paper, scissors, markers are the first thing to go after a natural disaster. And I think if anything, instead of having teachers like pretty much ask for donations, that's something we could send to them. And I'd like to point out, I understand during COVID that this is not on everybody's mind, but natural disasters are something to be prepared for. And if we can prepare for them in advance, they'll be more resilient afterward and can bounce back. So yeah, that's kind of my special project in my presentation. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I don't so much have a question, just a comment that outstanding job.
Thank you.
And your passion for education, it rings through. And it's so exciting to see young people who are excited to go into education, understand educational policy, are invigorated and bringing this great new creativity and ways of looking at things. And it's just really, really inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for sharing your project with us.
Thank you.
again, I think that brings home everything, particularly in the honoring of her mother and the many educators who've influenced her in her life. And then now we're, again, incubating a future educator, and her joining EdCorps, I think for everybody who's had a part in that is, I know that Jeff Coltrane and Dr. Townsend Smith and Chair Davis have all been a part of that. So it fills us with great joy to know that Sarah's taken that on and will be continuing with us in the fall. So, all right, so we will join the regular scheduled programming, which is the legislative update. As you can see here, we're coming towards the end of this legislative session. The bills have started to calm down, and we are still at 330 K-12 public education bills. Again, and I know this is a little bit overwhelming in the presentation form, but I want you all to have at your fingertips the reference for everything that's going on in the Legislative Assembly. Chair Davis and I spoke about doing an index at the beginning of this moving forward so that you can see the slide numbers and where they're applicable in different areas that we'll be talking about, so you don't have to scroll through all the slides. So I will be making those changes moving forward as we continue the budget process. So here you will see all of the bills that have become session law with hyperlinks there. And the majority of this part of the presentation will be focused on Senate Bill 105 and the 2021 Appropriations Act. So this is your main reference slide, everything from DPI financial and business services documents to the federal COVID relief. And you can see there's a singular link for every single one, ESSER 1, 2, 3, CRF. And then also at the national level, Department of Public Education and their certification agreement to that ESSER funding. So this should be kind of a one-stop shopping for all that's come about over the, goodness gracious, probably now, probably the last 10 months. Next slide is your conference committee. So you will see all the members of the House and the Senate. Also links to each one of them individually, so particularly in your own region or own area, this will give you an opportunity to reach out to them if you do have questions or discussions, and I would love to be a conduit and in that process if necessary. Next slide, you'll see the Public Instruction General Fund, and what you'll see over these next few slides is just kind of snippets from the budget. So you'll see, next slide. It's okay. Yeah, you'll just see that screenshot of the general fund budget, and then the next slide, kind of a breakdown of the House proposal right now of teacher pay, teacher salary. Figured that would be something that probably is a lot, getting a lot of questions, a lot on your mind. So this is the House proposal currently broken down for you. Next slide, you will see the House teacher salary schedule. Again, just trying to take some snippets from this and give you guys an updated version. Because this is in conference currently, this obviously may not take hold in its final version, but it gives you at least a glimpse of what we're looking at currently. And then over the next 7 or 8 slides, you will see a comparison of the Senate and the House version of the budget. And what our team, and I did want to give a brief shout out to our entire team. My colleague Jamie Falkenberry, Carson Nelson, and Murtha helped to put the next 20, 30 slides together. So it's been a great team effort. But you will see the breakdown here side by side. Over to the left, there'll be specific items either that are included in the current budget proposals or ones that we have lifted up in our negotiations and our discussions linked to the strategic plan of the state board and many DPI needs. So I'm not going to go through those one by one, but I did want that to be there for your reference if you need that moving forward. And if we can move to the slide that has the salary and ADM adjustments. Slide 20, please. Actually, it's not slide 20, sorry. That's just at B20. There we go. This is a snippet of the technical adjustments for salary and ADM. And then the next one, IT projects. And then as well as public school building fund. As you were listening to the discussion yesterday, this will be very pertinent as we're moving forward in those discussions as well. The next slide, where it says Senate Bill 654, K-12 COVID-19 provisions. This is not able to catch up with me today, huh?
You're flying.
These are House proposals for use of ESSER 3 funds. That is actually an error at the top, though. These have been removed from Senate Bill 654. They've now been moved into the House provisions for the budget. But I did want to give you on Section 12 what is being considered in the House proposal for use of those ESSER 3 funds. Can't wait to tell my kids how much faster I am practice for cross country. It's lagging a little bit on us, so and you can follow along here. If you'll go now to slide number 23 on your presentation, and you will see special provisions. So I do want to bring attention, there are about 72 special provisions that are included in the House budget. Many of these relate to the first one, community college joint program enrollment at public school students. But as you walk through, what you'll see is many of these were actually House bills that passed the House and were then brought to the Senate. And so the House proposal has included these proposals in the budget. So what we did is we put a link at the very top of each one of these slides to the bill in and of itself. And then there'll be a page number over to the right side that you can then use to correspond, to take a second look at some of these. There are definitely ones that are particularly on our radar, and I would like to bring those to your attention. And there are about 8 slides, so you can kind of see the number that are included on here. And then now moving to slide 34. I did want to bring some updates on several bills that we have been tracking. And we are extremely thankful that the governor signed Senate Bill 654 on August 30th. And this is very important to our districts. This is the K-12 COVID-19 provisions, particularly including remote instruction, the CPR, waiver mandate. And I wanted to bring this to our superintendents and to our charter schools' attention. We will be conducting meetings on Thursday, September 9th, so information will be going out on this bill particularly and its impact on the field. Moving now to the next slide, House Bill 91 and accountability and fair play in athletics. This bill passed second reading yesterday in the Senate, 32-14, and it has been placed on the calendar for September 8th. So this is something that we are definitely tracking here. I tried to put a brief summary on there of some of the, at this point, some of the provisions of that bill. There are several amendments, one that was passed yesterday and several others that are in consideration right now. So I will definitely keep you all up to date on this bill. And then lastly, in bills to watch, House Bill 324, ensuring dignity and non-discrimination schools. It did pass the House. They concurred with this 61-41. It has been enrolled and has now been sent to the governor. So we will keep our eyes on that one as well. So continuing our work with updating our legislative policy agenda, you've had the opportunity to hear from Special Advisor Tabari Wallace and Special Advisor Christy Von Auken. And I wanted to give you the opportunity today to listen to my friend and colleague, Special Advisor Julie Pittman. She will be working on number 2, teacher preparation, professional learning opportunities, and compensation. And I wanted to give her the opportunity to share in many of the initiatives and programs that she's engaged with. We're both working a great deal with teacher recruitment and retention specifically. And this will conclude the presentations on the legislative policy agenda. In October, I will come back with the full 7 priorities and allow the board the time to discuss what we've updated and what we're looking at moving into November, December, where we will then hold further discussions and votes as we build out a final legislative agenda as we move into short session. So, Julie Pittman, please.
Good
Morning. Good morning, Chair Davis, Vice Chair Duncan, Superintendent Truitt, board members, advisors, colleagues. I'm very excited to be here this morning to report on something that is near and dear to my heart, teacher recruitment and retention. And I'd like to start by telling you two brief stories. Many of you have heard me speak about one of the many important teachers that I had growing up in Johnston County Public Schools, Mrs. Linda Stevens. Mrs. Stevens was my 7th grade social studies teacher. She served as an assistant principal, a principal. She worked at DPI. She worked in district leadership, and when she retired after 30 years of serving K-12 public schools, she went on to become a professor at East Carolina University, where she trained principals. In fact, she has trained many principals across this great state, including my colleague Tabari Wallace, our special advisor on principal engagement. She knows that education is the surest path to freedom, prosperity, and perspective, and that is evidenced by her dedication to public instruction for over 50 years. The second teacher is a new teacher in Western North Carolina who literally today is in her 9th day in the classroom, but quite literally her 10th day on the job. About 6 weeks ago, she was a dental hygienist, cleaning the teeth of a school employee, and said, "You know, I've always wanted to be a science teacher." To which her patient said, "We have a spot for you." So she worked her 30-day notice, aligned with a residency program, went through orientation, worked at night and on the weekends to prepare her classroom for herself and her students, and started teaching last Monday. She knew that her passion for science and for teaching was something that she could do and should do, and we found a path for her to do that. You see, these are two shining examples of the greatness of the teaching profession in this state. Our teachers are important, and it is my duty and my honor to work with and for them. And I'd like to discuss some of the things that, along with my colleague Freeburg McKinney, and these two great teacher advisors that we have on your state board, Maureen Stover and Eugenia Floyd, are doing to support teachers and help support teacher recruitment and retention. We have district visits where we're working alongside regional directors and meeting with superintendents, HR directors, principals, and teachers to hear the challenges, promising practices, and solutions to recruit high-quality teachers and retain excellent educators in our districts. Like in Robinson County, which is not only using their 5 state allotments to support the TA to Teacher program, but also doubling that to add an additional 5 candidates through their district funds to meet their needs. Or teacher leadership programs that are supporting classroom level leadership to elevate educational practices and results in student success, like the homegrown advanced teaching roles in Cherokee County called curriculum engineers, or grant-funded ATRs like in Pitt County, or in the Teacher Housing Initiative in Buncombe County, where partners with public and private entities and Asheville City Schools are offering 24 units of essential teacher housing. That name was actually come up by a teacher, essential teacher housing, at affordable rates in a safe and accessible area. This initiative shows care and compassion to a housing crisis that is evidenced across our state. Or finally, the partnership in the Sandhills region between districts, community colleges, and UNC Pembroke to build strong alignment with pathways to becoming a teacher. Superintendent Truitt, I can hear her now saying, "Now what?" Well, we are working with our partners here in the agency to build and connect this work with the work we are doing here at DPI, with partners in the field to help support scaling and mentoring new work in other regions, with association partners like INCAPTI to create better communication, alignment, and sharing best practices across EPPs, community colleges, and community partnerships. Finally, I'm very excited to say that something I reported on earlier this year to the board has come to full fruition, the Teacher Leadership Council. It was launched last month, and we had our second monthly meeting yesterday down in my office after the board meeting. This council currently has teachers from every region in the state, representation of pre-K, elementary, middle, and high school teachers, multiple content areas including CTE, core subjects, arts, and exceptional children, charter schools, early colleges, traditional K-12, beginning teachers, and even North Carolina virtual public schools. It is a council that is chaired by our very own Maureen Stover and co-chaired by Eugenia Floyd. We're doing focused leadership, professional development, as well as getting feedback on critical issues in education. Yesterday, we heard feedback on helping support national board certification for teachers, the importance of teacher pay, local supplements, concern about geographic equity. So I'd like to offer again to board members, to the staff at DPI, to the General Assembly members to reach out to me with your questions on what would you like to gain feedback from teachers. How can you learn more about the work that you're passionate about through the lens of these teachers? And how can we get that feedback for you in a timely manner? And all of this work is building, next slide please, all of this work is building to a culminating event, the AIM 2021 conference, which will address many of these topics. Work with teams from districts to align our work, the State Board Strategic Plan, and Operation Polaris with the work happening in districts, charters, and lab schools across the state. And stealing some words from my dear friend, Superintendent Scott Elliott from Watauga County, we are doing the work to continue to make North Carolina the best place to teach and learn. I'll turn it back over to my colleague, Peter.
Mr. McKinney, before you start, and Ms. Pittman, before you sit down, we want to take you up on that. We'd like to devote a portion of each monthly agenda to a time for you to bring us examples of the compassion and kindness that's going on in our schools today, as well as the creativity, ingenuity, and persistence that's going on in our district and schools. We not only want to celebrate those every month, but we want to learn from them. So this is not just a standing invitation, it's a bit of a requirement. Homework, if you will. Bring us at least one example in some detail every month so that we can gain perspective and celebrate those examples. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we might be able to help you out here in just 1 second, so yes, sir. The next part of the presentation, we're going to briefly share a couple of updates from the State of the Shire and the Community Affairs update. And we wanted to first really highlight one initiative that's just thriving right now, and it has always thrived. And I think everybody knows I do have a dog in this fight because I was a former NCBPS teacher. But I wanted to lift up what NCBPS has really been doing. I mean, they have currently now enrolled over 31,000 students and are still enrolling for the fall. This is the largest enrollment to date. Just wanted to kind of break down some of the percentages just so that you could see the hard work and the effort. And I think you're here, right? Yes, ma'am. So just wanted to say thank you for you and your team's dedication in this process, but wanted to lift that bright light up. The department and many of the deputy superintendents and directors engaged in a back to school Rise to Shine initiative all over the state. Deputies and directors showed up the first and second days of schools to greet students, to greet staff, to open car doors, and it was just an incredible way to get in touch with our districts at the grassroots level, to show our appreciation, but also just again to remind us of that why. So I feel like this is a really important theme that you're going to see, particularly with what all our districts and each one of us individually and collectively are working through as the 21-22 school year begins. So just a great, I want to thank the comms department for really putting all that together and really directing us. As Ms. Pittman mentioned, there are multiple district visits, so the next few slides just kind of highlight what Chair Davis was mentioning. There's so much good going on across our state. I've loved watching Ms. Floyd in her journeys as the state teacher of the year. You're on District 10. Is that right?
11
now.
11 tomorrow.
Okay, 11 tomorrow. And being able just to see her lift up and interact has been truly a blessing. There were two initiatives that I think really speak to what Chair Davis mentioned, and the first one is Mountain Heritage High School. And this was an incredible initiative that was, that picture doesn't do it justice, but over to the right side, our students are literally building houses for their community in that area. And at this high school particular, they're just now finishing one for their former construction technology teacher who actually, unfortunately, his house burnt down. And so the community rallied together, and not only are these kids, students, learning about construction technology, everything from the blueprints all the way up from wheeling it out of that building onto site, but they were able to give back to someone who meant so much to them and so much to this community. And Ms. Pittman and Dr. Stegall and I had the pleasure to meet Jeremy Dodd, who was their teacher, to learn about this initiative and to build out an understanding of how we might be able to duplicate this as a promising practice across the state, because it was truly a transformational program. Did you want to share the last one that you mentioned earlier on the central educator housing? You want to do that? Could you go to that slide and we'll finish up with that, please?
So we also were in Buncombe County Schools, I mentioned this earlier, and they talked about the necessity and need for housing when they're trying to recruit quality teachers. That housing market is just booming and it's just not affordable for teachers. So through a public-private partnership, including some partnership with the State Employees Credit Union. I'm so not prepared for this, but I'll try. They were able to build a 24-unit. Each unit has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, washer, dryer. It's a full apartment. So 24 units to be able to house teachers. So it was really called, I think, affordable teacher housing, and they were like, that doesn't sound like where we want to live, so they call it essential teacher housing. And that was, like I said, come up with by, one of the teachers came up with that. It's in a great area. It's within walking or biking distance to several schools where some of those teachers teach. It's centrally located in the district. There are 6 units, I believe, that are 4 or 6 units that are dedicated specifically to Asheville City Schools teachers. They can essentially, for under $1,000, and the market price there is between $11,000 and $12,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Pardon?
11 to 1200
a month.
Right.
Yeah.
What did I say, 1,000?
Okay.
Sorry. That's a lot.
New York City.
That is New York City. $1,100 to $1,200 a month. They can get 2 teachers in 1 apartment for under $1,000. So it really goes to helping them save money in their take home. And it's just a really sweet place. We were able to tour, spur of the moment, one of the teachers' apartments. The superintendent just asked if we could go in. And it's just a really great, spacious unit. And we talked to several teachers who were there and said it was just a wonderful thing. We are looking at how we can help scale that in other regions. We know that specifically in Clay County, there's a crisis for housing, both for teachers and for principals and the superintendent who struggle to get housing there. So we're looking at how we can scale this, maybe not 24 units in a place like Clay County, but maybe for essential workers in a district where they could share some housing and be able to find a place that's affordable and really increase our recruitment retention efforts in those areas. Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay, we've got time for one. Dr. Oxendine.
Okay, I feel the pressure. You know what? This is reminiscent of, and I'm not that old, but this goes back many years ago. And the county that comes to mind is Harnett County, because they still have a building on the central office campus called a teachery. And this is a building that was provided for teachers way back when who did not have housing. So you might want to, I know you've got a busy agenda, but you might want to add that to your tours, just to see that building, because it was used for that purpose. And I was very interested in the affordability. My house is on the market, and I don't know if I have a place to live, until I heard Julie say there were on-the-spot visits of the apartment. So take my name off the list. But that's fascinating. I mean, I love the history of that concept, so it's still with us.
And we know that Bertie County has started a similar initiative, so that is on the agenda as well. And we know that Wake County has just bought an old middle school, I believe it is, and are considering that as well. So we're hoping that, again, the more we lift up, the more we build partnerships, as Julie talked about with State Employees Credit Union. It does require a philanthropic organization also. And so we feel like there are seeds of these possibilities all across the state. So I think it's just a matter of kind of putting people together at the table like Buncombe had the courage to do. So thank you, Dr. Oxendine.
Ms. McKinney, we thank you and Ms. Pittman for not only, and the entire Legislative Affairs team, not only for this report, but for the terrific work you're doing out there, supporting our teachers and principals and ultimately our students and families. Thank you so much.
Sir.
You bet. All right, well, next we have an opportunity to hear from our special partners in the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for a brief report and update on items on their responsibility. And I'll turn to Chief Deputy Secretary Susan Gale Perry. Chief Deputy.
Thank you, Chairman Davis. Hello, board members and others. It's great, as always, to be with you today. I have a very easy job today because the majority of this presentation will be delivered by Dr. Betsy Tilson, our State Health Director, and as well as Ann Nichols, our State School Health Nurse Consultant. We'll try to move fairly quickly through the slides because we do have a little bit of a time crunch. So, Dr. Tilson, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Wonderful, thank you, and it's always a pleasure to be with you all, and thank you for your leadership, and it is always lovely to join a little early and just hear about all the success and innovation and creativity and dedication going on in our education system. So thank you for your work day in and day out. I'm going to quickly cover some of our metrics, what we're seeing in school children, and a little bit about some school policies across the state, and then I'll turn it over to Ann Nichols, who will do a little bit of an update on some minor changes we've made in the Strong Schools Toolkit, and we'll also give an update on some of the testing programs that our schools are adopting. So with that, unfortunately, I believe it was in June or July, that I was able to be with this august body. At that point, we were on a downward trend. I think Chairman Davis was saying, wow, we're in such a different place. This is great. We've gotten through the pandemic. Unfortunately, that has not held, and as many of you are aware, we are in a stage of very rapid rise again, primarily with the introduction of the Delta variant, which is just far more transmissible and contagious than prior variants. So we look at our 4 key metrics that we've been using all along to see where we are. All 4 of those metrics are up and rising quickly. Our cases, our percent positive, our hospitalizations. I want to particularly stay on that for a moment, that we are seeing very tight capacity in our hospitals, in our ICUs. So I'm pretty nervous about our hospital capacity. And then the bottom right is people coming to the emergency department for COVID-like illness. So all 4 of the metrics are up. And again, we've always worried specifically about our hospital capacity as well. Next slide. We see all of our metrics are up, and they're also up statewide. As you may be aware, CDC tracks counties looking at substantial or high level of transmission. I think the CDC school toolkit, as well as our school toolkit, as well as guidances map to the CDC definition of moderate to high transmission. That is on the top left. That is according to CDC, that unfortunately all 100 counties of North Carolina are now categorized as high transmission. Within those level of high transmissions, you can see how we're broken down within North Carolina, and the darker blue are where we even the highest levels of transmission, even though we know everybody is high, and you can see that distribution of that highest level of transmission. Next slide. And we're also seeing cases increase across all of our age groups, and notably, especially for this body, I do want to point out that we are seeing now the highest cases increase in our younger people. Specifically our 18 to 24-year-olds, those are the people in the red line. That is, we're seeing those highest rates of transmission. But if you pay attention to the yellow line, those are our people 0 to 17, and you can see that rate of acceleration. And now they are the second highest number of case rates is in those children 0 to 17. A little bit of a bright spot in this is that darker blue, the very bottom line, those are our older people 65 and up. We are seeing the lowest rate of spread in that population, and again, that correlates with the highest rate of immunizations in that population. I would also point out, before you move, that yellow line, that rate, again, 0 to 17, if you compare that to the yellow bump that we saw in January, we are above the case rate for our children than we saw in that peak back in January. Next slide, please. And if we break it down just within our children, again, knowing this august body, if you look at those top three lines, the IR on the bottom, that stands for incident rates. So those are the number of new cases. I mean, you can see that kind of royal blue line, that is our 15 to 17-year-olds. The yellow line is our 10 to 14-year-olds, and that gray line is our 5 to 9-year-olds. So you'll see those school-age children amongst our pediatric population have that highest rate of escalating incident rate. But we are seeing it also in our preschoolers, the 0 to 1 and 2 to 4-year-olds as well. Next slide. We're also obviously tracking our clusters. This is available on our cluster dashboard. You see that link on that top right. As we move along, looking at our clusters now, we have 72 active clusters in K-12 settings. And just looking at the color, that gold color is college and universities. The purple color is our K-12. The blue color is our camps. You can see we had a fair amount of clusters in the summer with our camps. And then the green color is our child care. A lot of our clusters, we're seeing the same patterns that we saw last year. A lot in our sports teams, our athletics teams, in football, in cheerleading. Obviously, those are all fall sports. But we are continuing to see those same patterns of a higher increase of those clusters in those higher risk activities, especially amongst our sports. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, a lot of this spread is the spread of the Delta variant that is far more transmissible than prior variants. And what we know by the sequencing that we do for our samples is that it's pretty much 99% of what is circulating in North Carolina is the Delta variant now. And again, far more contagious. So we're really going to have to learn of what does the transmission look like with Delta variant, knowing it is very, very different than those prior variants. So we still have a lot of learning to do as we go into this school year. Next slide, please. And one of the things that we're going to be learning, and we're going to have to really be learning about what happens in school, transmissions in school, what are those layers of protection that we need. This is article that was just published, I think on Thursday, that looked at specifically on what in schools with Delta variant, what were they seeing in terms of spread. And what you'll see in this, and you see a link to the full article on the bottom, is that there was a teacher who was infected and was wearing a mask inconsistently. And the what we call attack rate, or what percent of the children in that classroom that were exposed turned positive, and it was 50%, 50%. That is a much, much, much higher attack rate than we have been seeing pre-Delta. And what you'll see in that little graphic is the red. Those red squares are the children who turned positive. And one of the things, the patterns they saw was those children that were in the closer proximity to the teacher were at higher risk of being positive. And so this again reinforces that the need of consistent mask wearing and also the physical distancing, especially between adults and children. Next slide, please. And this is just one school's experience. We are now working with our school systems, with our local health departments, with our ABC collaborative to really, as we are moving into the school year with some different mask requirements with this Delta, what does it look like? But this is just one school's experience that went into session a little bit earlier than some other schools. Went into session, they had a mask optional policy, started seeing a lot of cases, started seeing a lot of rises in their quarantine. I know quarantine is a big issue. They moved to a mask requirement. Took a couple days for things to settle down, but we're able to see now a decrease in the cases and a decrease in the quarantine afterwards. And so we'll be, as there's been a lot of changes in mask requirements, and we'll be looking at these patterns across the state as we go forward as well. Next slide, please. Now, I alluded to is there has been a lot of movement in changes on mask requirements. This is the status as of Tuesday, when we submitted these slides ahead of time. There has been a lot of movement even since Tuesday, and as of this morning, we are up to 106 of the 115 school districts have moved to masking requirements, and that covers about 94% of our children in our public school system. So there's been a lot of movement as we have gone forward, with about 46% of districts changing their policies within the past couple weeks. Next slide, please. Wonderful. And just a couple slides on vaccination, and then I'll turn it over to Anne. One, just the status of where we are with vaccination. We have been making a fair amount of progress, which is great. We've been seeing increasing rates of vaccination over the past month and a half. We're up to 2/3 of adults now that have had at least one dose, which is good. We need to get better, but we're moving in the right direction. And on the right-hand side, you can see that breakup by age. And we're about 40% of our teenagers who've had at least one dose. So we're making progress. And really, I think you know, but really good continuing assurance of the safety and effectiveness of these vaccines, that Pfizer did receive that full approval from the FDA for vaccines 16 and up. Also, CDC reinforced their recommendation as well for Pfizer just last week. Because the authorization for the 12 to 15-year-old came after the authorization for the 16-year-old, we still need a little bit more time to have that full approval for the 12 to 15. I don't anticipate there will be a problem. I anticipate I'll have full approval, but we just have to wait for the time for that process to play out. Next slide, please. And this will be my last slide, and then I'll turn over to Anne. We also wanted to share some data. We pushed this out from the department last week, but specifically looking at the protection of these vaccines with circulating Delta. And we went back and looked at our data in the past 4 weeks when we predominantly had Delta variant. What we have found is the same that we've been seeing from other states, is that we still have a high level of protection with these vaccines. We do expect, and we are seeing people who've had the vaccine to also get infected. We have always expected that. However, when we look at our people who are unvaccinated as compared to people who are fully vaccinated, the unvaccinated people are 4.5 times more likely to become infected. And even more important is our unvaccinated people are more than 15 times more likely to die from COVID as our fully vaccinated individuals. So our vaccines are still providing very, very, very high level of protection for severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And with that, I will turn it over to Anne to talk a little bit about some of the modest changes we did in this toolkit and an update on where we are with our lab, or with our testing program. Anne.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tilson. I'm going to cover really quickly this slide on recent changes to the toolkit, and then just a couple of slides on progress with our testing program. Over the past month, since the last time we provided an update, there's been very minor changes made to the toolkit. Most of these have been added as a response to multiple questions on the same issue. Then we take a look and we see that there is some additional clarity that's needed. So on the first bullet in the introductory material, where the background information on COVID-19 and school children is discussed, we have assured that our symptom list that's included there aligns with the CDC guidance symptom list, so that people going back and forth won't have questions about differences. We also added additional guidance. I would say it's a little bit more of a wording change on the higher risk instruction extracurricular activities. We've talked about those before when it has to do with exercising, anything has to do with blowing air, wind instruments, singing, that kind of thing. For the most part, as able to be done, those should be happening outside. But when they are held indoors, it is important to comply with wearing of masks and spacing in order to prevent spread in those higher risk activities. And then finally, clarified the language that was already in the Strong Schools Toolkit on modified quarantine. That is when someone who has been exposed and doesn't have symptoms but is sent home to quarantine can return based on not developing symptoms at home and a negative COVID test at a particular point in time. Those modified quarantine guidance items do not apply to extracurricular activities, including athletics. They are applicable to the school day in the Strong Schools Toolkit. That being said, I'll move to the next slide, please. The Strong Schools K-12 testing program implementation process is really well underway. We are trying to make sure that we align with some overarching goals in providing these services, which include being equitable, accessibility, ready accessibility, providing minimal disruption in the education day, and assuring that the program that's being provided is aligned with current guidance, CDC guidance. So this is a quick update on that progress and some upcoming events. This particular slide may seem familiar because it's providing a reacquaintance overview of the program with the testing plan options that school leaders address when they are making decisions, those LEAs and other schools that are opting in and submitting their participation opt-ins. So those options are the state contracted vendor or doing an independent testing program. All of these have some parameters around them, but one or the other sometimes best fits a school's situation. And then public schools can also do the add-on for the staffing funds to provide support for any testing activities that are not covered by the vendor, COVID response activities and other school activities, health activities that need to be addressed at the present time. And staffing funds are being made accessible to the employer of the LEAs, school nursing staff, and related school health staff. A couple of links on here if you're interested in going and looking at the testing program guidance and that kind of thing. And the opt-in period has been open in this window since July 16th. Next slide, please. So this slide covers the opt-in numbers that we're seeing at present. I believe it's as of Monday by state region. And as you can see in the bar at the top, it includes 73 LEAs at the present time. The most common option being chosen is by LEAs and pretty much all other schools is the state contracted vendor option, and that is the darker blue in this bar graph. And this chart, though, does include all of those school types mentioned at the top that have opted in to date, not just the LEAs. Next slide. On some communication updates regarding upcoming events. Our parent-facing webpage went live last week and was widely promoted this week. It does include some updated FAQs that are more directed towards questions that parents are asking. The really nice thing about it for parents is it also has a searchable function where if they want to know if their LEA or school is participating in the COVID testing program, they can search for their school. Emails, you can stay on that slide, go back a minute. Emails have been sent out announcing a second wave of vendor webinar opportunities for next week. These are provided to help answer questions that leadership and health staff may continue to have and to share ongoing information that helps in their decision making. And then the opt-in period at present, the initial window is pending closing on the 13th. And while opportunity to opt in will still be available after that time, our priority response will first be directed to those districts and schools that have opted in during this window. That is the end of this quick update on the testing program, and Q&A, I believe, is next if there's an opportunity for doing that.
Thank you so much to our DHHS partners. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Vice Chair Duncan.
There has apparently been some development with respect to booster shots, and I know many of our educators received vaccinations in the range of 6 months ago or so. Is there any plan in terms of how it would go forward for booster shots and availability for educators?
Thank you for that question. I'm happy to take that. So there's two recommendations right now, just to clarify. So one, people who have moderate or severely compromised immune systems, so people who, for example, are actively treating cancer, being in treatment for cancer, or are taking high doses of medications that may lower their immune system, or have had solid organ transplants. People that may have a compromised immune system, they can now get an additional dose. Those people, what we're finding is that they may not have mounted enough response for those first 2 doses. They can go ahead now and get an additional dose. So for any educator or staff member or person in the education community that fall into that category with a moderate or severely compromised immune system can get an additional dose now. For people who don't fall in that category, people who don't have a compromised immune system, they're looking at that data now. They may, and a recommendation around a booster later on in order to have more sustained protection from the immunization. That boost, for right now, people, the general population, it is not authorized or recommended to do a booster dose now, unlike the additional dose. The FDA and the CDC is looking at all of that data right now to determine what populations, when would be the timing, and what would be the recommendation for those booster doses. So the FDA and the CDC are looking at that now. There has been a date for planning purposes that may be at the end of September. There may be booster doses that start then. However, that is all very much subject to FDA and CDC looking at that data and making those recommendations. So we are still waiting, but we are planning for that situation. The specifics we still are going to need to learn about, but we are definitely booster planning so that if and when that comes to pass, we will be thinking through all of our points of access and how we can get those boosters doses out for people. It will be in a very different position in the end of September, beginning of October than we were back in the beginning, where we had many more sites of access points. We have much more supply, so it'll be easier this time around than it was the first time around. That was a longer answer than you were probably expecting, but there is some complexity. And again, I wanted to be sure that people that do have that moderate or severe immunocompromised know today they can go and get their additional dose today.
Thank you, Dr. Tilson. I know you have your team chief deputy has a hard stop at 10:40. So unfortunately, we're going to have to end now. But we do have some questions that we'd like to forward to you. Or if we do, we'll forward those to you and appreciate your response on those. Thank you again for your presentation this morning and for your partnership throughout these challenging times. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, team. Let's take a 10-minute break, and I tell you, let's take a break until 11 o'clock. We'll reconvene at 11 o'clock.
Still alive, guys.
Yeah, even if it's just to like. My colleagues.